37 Palestinians killed today already in clashes with Israeli troops. This is ahead of the U.S. Embassy opening in just a few moments officially in Jerusalem. This marks the single deadliest day in weeks of protests there. Right now, the ceremony for that embassy opening, which is highly controversial, is just getting underway. President Trump calling it a, quote, great day. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it's an amazing day and also an emotional one. President Trump is due to address the crowd at the ceremony in a pre-recorded message. You will hear it here in just moments. Let's begin this hour, though, with our Ian Lee. He joins us from Gaza. What can you tell us?
No, Poppy, we're just hearing now that that death toll is now standing at 38 people. This makes it the single deadliest day since the 2014 war here in Gaza. You know, just a while ago, actually, we saw 2 airstrikes in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. You know, it's been tense here along the border all day. You know, one thing we've seen a lot of are these drones that fly over that drop tear gas. And just a little while ago, a drone, it looked like, dropped leaflets on the crowd. But really, it's all focusing down at the border, hundreds of meters away from me right now. That is where we're seeing this tension. The protesters have said that they're going to try to cross over into Israel. And Israel says they're just not going to let that happen. They say at first they're going to warn people verbally, then use non-lethal means like that tear gas I told you about, and then use live rounds. And that's where we get this high death toll of 38 people killed and well over 1,000 people have been injured. But this sort of day had been expected. We've seen protests over the past 7 weeks. Palestinians are angry about this embassy move, and we're expecting to see this kind of violence continue, Poppy, tomorrow.
Ian, let's go straight to the ceremony. It's just getting underway. Sorry for interrupting you. Let's listen in.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare. Our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
So the ceremony for the opening of this U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem has just begun. You just heard the U.S. national anthem. As we wait to hear from President Trump, who will be delivering a video message, we'll also see his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, one of his senior advisors, speaking a little later. Let's go to our Elise Lavitt, who joins us now. Elise, this was a promise of the president on the campaign trail. It's a decision he formally announced at the end of last year. Now it is happening. Highly controversial.
Highly controversial, Poppy, in terms of obviously a crushing blow to the Palestinians, but a jubilant day here in Jerusalem for the Israelis. We have Ambassador David Friedman taking the podium. President Trump, very popular here for this move. Signs lining the streets. President Trump is a friend of Israel. President Trump will make Israel great again. Obviously, the Israelis have been waiting for this day for 70 years, but it's not without controversy because of this move and also because of some of the speakers here today. You have Robert Jeffers, who is giving the opening invocation, a very controversial pastor and a big supporter of President Trump, who's been widely criticized for anti-Muslim, anti-gay, anti-Mormon comments that have been criticized by former presidential candidate Mitt Romney, himself a Mormon, and also of Jews. And then you have John Hagee, a pastor of the of the Cornerstone Church, also the founder of Christians United for Israel, who's also been criticized for some comments he's made. In fact, in 2008, John McCain, presidential candidate, had to disavow his endorsement. So some very controversial speakers, a very controversial event, but that's not dampening the mood here, one of emotion and jubilation for the Israeli people at this recognition by President Trump, Poppy.
And of course, today, at least as you mentioned, 70 years, it's significant because the opening today taking place on the 70th anniversary of America recognizing the state of Israel. We see the U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, speaking there. And Elise, let me just ask you this, because we saw some members of Congress just stand up and applaud there a moment ago. It's significant that this really is not a bipartisan delegation, right? These are all Republicans. Even notable, the former ambassador to Israel under President Obama, Dan Shapiro, is not there. I say notable because he is someone who's been very supportive of moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Supportive of the move, and also Poppy still lives in Israel with his family and his children who are still going to school here. They said that they didn't invite any officials from previous administrations, but it's not a bipartisan delegation, even though support for Israel is a very bipartisan issue. This is an entirely Republican delegation. And all in support of President Trump's move to show U.S. support for Israel. This is really, obviously for the Israeli people, but it's President Trump's show today.
Elise Labott standing by there for us as this gets underway. Again, you'll hear from the president just momentarily, but as we wait, let's go to Oren Lieberman. He's about a half a mile from where the new embassy will be at one of the main entrances to the old city. And Oren, what has the reaction been there? Because we're seeing on the other side of our screen the violence that has broken out in Gaza.
It's almost like we're in two different worlds. We're not all that far from Gaza. We could be at my colleague Ian Lee's location in just a couple of hours. And yet here in the city of Jerusalem, it is nothing but a celebration. And you saw some of that when you saw Elise Labott. I was at that location yesterday. It's festive. The celebrations began yesterday and have continued today. And yet condemnation has still poured in. And we saw that right after President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. An overwhelming condemnation of that decision by the United Nations General Assembly. And that condemnation continues from where we expect it to be honest. In fact, Iran said that this will not go unanswered and they will have some sort of response to the U.S. moving of the embassy to Jerusalem, the U.S. recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Turkey saying that U.S. is now part of the problem, not part of the solution in the Middle East. Jordan also saying the move of the embassy has no legal validity, and that's key because that's a very close ally of the U.S. So condemnation, as it has been all along, continuing to this day. Poppy, it's worth pointing out that Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have tried to build momentum off of the U.S.'s move of the embassy and tried to get other countries to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So far, only two countries have agreed to do so, Guatemala and Paraguay. Those are two countries with large evangelical populations.
Oren, thank you very much. Let's go to our Jeff Zeleny. He joins us now from the White House. And Jeff, we're waiting to hear from the president. Again, this is going to be a pre-recorded message. Do you have any sense of what he is going to say? Again, following through on one of his major promises on the campaign trail and then in the early days of his presidency.
Indeed, Poppy, good morning. That is what the president is expected to say. He is expected to, hail this as a great day and the fulfillment of a campaign pledge. But at the same time, it is worth pointing out that it is also going to make the second pledge much harder. He pledged to also try and restore peace in the Middle East. This, without question, as Elise and Oren have been saying, makes it much more difficult. But there was a time at one point where the president was actually thinking of going for this opening. It was decided against that because he has so many things going on, so many things on his plate, of course, with the summit coming up in Singapore next month. But all eyes here are on the embassy opening. Ivanka Trump is there, Jared Kushner is there, and Jared Kushner is going to speak. He is going to say that it is still possible to bring peace to the Middle East, but we have not seen that the peace plan, the outline of that. The White House has not released that yet, and without question, it does make it more difficult, Poppy.
Just looking at these pictures on the screen, you've got the embassy opening there, David Friedman speaking on one side. You've got the violence in Gaza right nearby that has now claimed, according to Palestinian officials, 38 lives. It is striking. Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. And joining me now, Christian Amanpour, Chief International Correspondent and Rear Admiral John Kirby, our military and diplomatic analyst. Christian, to you first. If we could pull back up on the screen as I speak with both of you, the split screen, it is striking to see the juxtaposition.
Poppy, it is an extraordinary day, obviously, for President Trump, for his daughter, her husband, for all the officials who are there, and most particularly for the Israeli Prime Minister. This is a triumph for the Israeli Prime Minister. He's managed to draw an American administration into a declaration that breaks not only with 70 years of American policy, but 70 years of an international consensus. So if you wanted to see what it looks like to have an American policy going it alone in the world, this is what it looks like. Because as Oren pointed out, only 2 other countries have made the recognition. We hear from reports inside Israel that at a reception, a diplomatic foreign ministry reception over the weekend, to try to celebrate this moment, only about a third of those diplomats based in Israel actually attended the reception. This is not the UN consensus, it's not the EU consensus, it's not the Russian consensus. This is a very, very big break with the international consensus around Israel. And what is the consensus? The consensus basically revolves around the most contentious part of the entire Middle East, and that is Jerusalem. And for many, many years, not only have international and UN resolutions placed it as partly occupied territory, but the United States has always said through all the peace agreements that this is a subject that has to be resolved by the 2 parties at the end of a process. And this is not what is happening right now. So what it does is, as Jeff pointed out, Jeff Zeleny, really puts a spanner in the works to any hope that the United States could present a peace plan. Of course, we don't know what the peace plan is, but it looks like it's going to be very heavily weighted towards Prime Minister Netanyahu, not just Israel, but the Netanyahu right-wing view of the peace process. And it's very unlikely that it's going to be pushed forward at all.
So, Admiral Kirby, to Christian's point, I mean, the critics of this say, look, this takes the United States out of the equation as any neutral party in any negotiations. Of course, Jared Kushner is there at the embassy opening. He's been tasked by his father-in-law, the president, to help craft a peace deal, the ultimate deal, as the president calls it, in the Middle East. You have the head of the Secretary General of the PLO, Saeb Erekat, saying that this opening is not just symbolic, it shows what he calls the determination of the Trump administration to destroy the 2-state solution. But the Trump administration says no, it takes Jerusalem off the table and it makes the peace process or getting to a 2-state solution more plausible. How do you see it?
I disagree. I don't think it makes it more plausible. I think it completely undermines what their stated goal is, which is a 2-state solution. They have now heavily put their thumb on the scale in the favor of Israel. Look at the president's tweet this morning. A great day for Israel. You know what? I agree with him. It is. But it's a terrible day for the Middle East peace process, or what's left of it, or even getting there to the end. So I think they have completely undermined any effort to effectively act as a mediator between the 2 sides, or as any credible arbiter of the interests of both sides. I think this sets it back extremely far.
Christian, yes, Christian, before we get to break, yes.
Sorry, go. Yeah, just wanted to say, you know, it's not only taking the United States out in terms of a mediator between 2 sides, because as you know, the Palestinians have broken contact with the United States since the announcement was made. And it's all very well saying, yes, we still believe in a 2-state solution, but when you create facts on the ground that go contrary to that, it's really difficult to see how that can happen. But I would just say it is important to look at history. If you walk back to 2006, recent history, the then Republican administration of George W. Bush decided that it would be a good idea to have elections in the Palestinian territories. The Israeli government at the time said, please don't do it. The Palestinian Authority at the time said, please don't do it. Why? Because we know Hamas will win. And that's what happened. Hamas won. And this was on, America's head, essentially. They pushed the 2 sides into an ill-advised election at that time. And so now you have all this political breakdown that the Israelis were able to say, we have no interlocutors. Look at Hamas in Gaza. Well, who facilitated that? Then the other main issue is, if not with Abu Mazen, i.e. Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, then who will you have a diplomatic agreement and negotiation with. He is the only member, he and his group are the only members of the Palestinians who believe in a diplomatic settlement. Hamas doesn't. So this is going to be very, very tough going forward.
Christian, Admiral Kirby, thank you both. Stay with us. We have a lot more ahead as we wait again to hear from the president at this embassy opening. He will deliver this video message in just moments, delivering on one of his signature campaign promises. You'll see that live right here. Also, a new twist in the trade battle with China. The president vows to help save Chinese jobs. A surprise from the America First president. And lava and gas shooting into the air in Hawaii. Officials warning of a possible explosive eruption. We're there as well. Stay with us. Begins. We'll bring it to you live. In the meantime, though, joining me now is Francis Rooney, Republican Congressman of Florida, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. It's nice to have you here, Congressman, on a day that I know you've been very supportive of, this move to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, something that Congress passed as law back in 1995, but every president subsequently has not made the move. The president did decide to do it. The critics argue, look, by the United States and the president tweeting this morning, this is a great day for Israel, and moving the embassy to Jerusalem, it takes the U.S. off the table as an honest broker, as a neutral broker in the peace process, trying to get to a peace resolution, trying to get to a two-state solution. Do they have a point?
Well, I'd like to make 3 quick points about this, if I might, and thank you for having me back on, Poppy. First of all, it's nice to see someone do what they said they do. In my line of work, not very many people seem to do that. Second, I don't believe in cowering to terrorists, and I lived through the violence that ensued after the first Charlie Hebdo cartoon in 2005, when the European press and the European governments cowered to the Islamic extremists, and look what we got, a lot more Charlie Hebdo violence. So the third thing I would say is we have to wait until Palestine is really ready for peace. Remember, Ehud Barak offered Arafat everything he asked for back in the mid-90s, and Arafat walked out of the room.
Are you saying that Palestinians that oppose this move are all terrorists? It sounds like you're grouping them all into one with that answer.
I'm not saying they're all terrorists, but there sure was a lot of smoke on your screen here just a few minutes ago. Those guys are.
We've been showing the violence in Gaza. We can pull that back up. 38 people killed thus far. Some of the people that have spoken at this and given the prayers and the benediction this morning at the ceremony, two controversial pastors, two controversial American pastors, Pastor Robert Jeffers and Pastor John Hagee. As you know, Pastor Jeffers, there you have him. He just wrapped up moments ago. He's called Mormonism a cult. He's called Islam and Mormonism heresies from the pit of hell. He's denounced Islam, calling it an evil religion that promotes pedophilia. He suggested the Catholic Church was led astray by Satan. Do you think it is beneficial to America to have this pastor speaking on the world stage today ahead of the president? Is this a voice that you would invite?
I would have preferred to have more ecumenism in who gets to speak at this very important event and show the world that what we really are in America, the First Amendment ecumenistic, pluralistic society. And I don't like the fact that these guys are anti-Catholic.
What do you think it says? That these are the two pastors that have been chosen by President Trump. The other pastor is Pastor John Hagee, who we just saw a moment ago, who gave a sermon in the 1990s that seemed to suggest that Adolf Hitler had been fulfilling God's will by returning Jews to Israel. Highly controversial and denounced as well. What does it say that they have been selected by this administration to be on the world stage on a day like today?
I would say, to use a financial investment metaphor, we are overweight with evangelicals.
Any other thoughts?
Well, like I say, I would have rather had a balanced scorecard. I would suit me to have as broad of an ecumenical list of speakers and participants as they could get.
But is what these two pastors have said, should that be disqualifying to them being on this stage ahead of the president today?
Well, I don't like what they've said at all.
Should it be disqualifying?
Well, it's not my call. It's the president's call and the ambassador's call. But if it were me, it would be a radically different panel of speakers.
All right, as we wait for the president, let me get you on a few other topics. On Iran, after the U.S. has stopped waiving the sanctions, essentially pulling the U.S. out of the Iran deal, National Security Advisor John Bolton, you know he was on the Sunday shows yesterday morning, and when he was speaking with Jake Tapper, he left the door open to the United States possibly sanctioning our European allies if they continue to do business with Iran, because France, the UK, Germany are staying in the Iran deal. Would that be beneficial to the United States if indeed the U.S. were to impose secondary sanctions on, say, British companies, German companies, French companies that continue to do business in Iran?
It might be. You know, what I hope is that the Europeans are going to go to the Iranians now and say, look, you know the president means business. He has said he's fine to have a treaty if we reform it so we can get in there and see what's going on those military bases and talk about ballistic missile testing. So why don't they make a couple of amendments to that thing and put it back in place? Otherwise, you know, like Lenin said, the capitalists will sell us the rope we'll use to hang them with.
Why would it be beneficial to America for secondary sanctions to be imposed on these European allies?
Because the purpose of sanctions is economic strangulation, just like it seems to have worked pretty well with North Korea.
The president over the weekend sent a tweet that has a lot of people scratching their head, and it has to do with the Chinese company called ZTE. This is a huge telecommunications and cell phone maker out of China, employs some 75,000 people. Well, the Commerce Department banned it from doing business with American companies last month because it violated an agreement having to do with doing business with Iran and North Korea. That resulted in the company practically shutting down, losing tens of thousands of jobs. So the president over the weekend said that he's working with President Xi of China to try to keep it in business. And he said, why? Because too many Chinese jobs, I should note, have been lost. That was surprising to many from the America First president. Why do you think President Trump is trying to save Chinese jobs and help prop up this company?
Well, I got to say, it was surprising to me, too, at first blush. And I've been thinking about it. And all I can think of is, and I hope, is that there's some deals back here in the background to work, have China work again further for North Korea, because you need China.
The United States, under President Harry Truman, became the first nation to recognize the State of Israel. Today, we officially opened the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. Congratulations. It's been a long time coming. Almost immediately after declaring statehood in 1948, Israel designated the city of Jerusalem as its capital. The capital the Jewish people established in ancient times. So important. Today, Jerusalem is the seat of Israel's government. It is the home of the Israeli legislature and the Israeli Supreme Court and Israel's prime minister and president. Israel is a sovereign nation with the right, like every other sovereign nation, to determine its own capital. Yet for many years, we failed to acknowledge the obvious, the plain reality that Israel's capital is Jerusalem. On December 6, 2017, at my direction, the United States finally and officially recognized Jerusalem as the true capital of Israel. Today, we follow through on this recognition and open our embassy in the historic and sacred land of Jerusalem. And we're opening it many, many years ahead of schedule. As I said in December, our greatest hope is for peace. The United States remains fully committed to facilitating a lasting peace agreement, and we continue to support the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including at the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif. This city and its entire nation is a testament to the unbreakable spirit of the Jewish people. The United States will always be a great friend of Israel and a partner in the cause of freedom and peace. We wish Ambassador Friedman good luck as he takes up his office in this beautiful Jerusalem embassy, and we extend a hand in friendship to Israel, the Palestinians, and to all of their neighbors. May there be peace. May God bless this embassy. May God bless all who serve there. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
A pre-recorded message there from President Trump that was just aired, as you see on the screen there, at the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem. Jeff Zeleny, Elise Labit, Christian Amanpour are back with me. Christian, to you first, the words from the president, freedom and peace. May there be peace. He says this as we see these live pictures we can pull up as well of the violence that has erupted in Gaza very close by. What do you make of the message from the president?
You need two to tango. You need two to make peace. Peace is not going to be a unilateral declaration because there are all sorts of other fall-on and knock-on effects if it becomes a one-state solution. People need to think very, very carefully about that. And I guess what the president has done is the political equivalent of ripping up or pulling out of the Iran deal, basically pulling out of the Middle East peace process as a broker between two sides and throwing the United States weight behind one side. Well, that's all well and good. It'll go down very well with Israelis, American Jews, a lot of...
Unveiling the seal on the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. We'll be right back with more of this breaking news. Stay with us. More in just a moment, but meantime, a major business headline over the weekend. President Trump says jobs are on the line. He's telling the Commerce Department to step in and save a struggling company. Here's the twist, though. The company he's trying to save is a huge Chinese technology company called ZTE. The jobs he wants to save are Chinese jobs, not a message many would expect from the America First president. Also very important to note, a 2012 congressional report found this company, ZTE, poses a security threat to the United States and our systems. Our chief business correspondent, Christine Romans, is here with more. I reread this tweet when it came this weekend. Surprised to see it, to say the least, from the president. Why?
It's a real reversal here. This is the president, President Trump, Poppy, vowing to save jobs, Chinese jobs. He's working to get this Chinese smartphone maker, ZTE, quote, back into business. He tweeted this: too many jobs in China lost. Commerce Department has been instructed to get it done. Well, just last month, Trump's Commerce Department crippled ZTE. It barred U.S. companies from selling it vital parts. That was punishment for ZTE violating U.S. sanctions by selling to Iran and North Korea and then lying about disciplining the employees involved. The Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross called ZTE's behavior egregious, and now Trump expects Ross to resolve the trade action. This drew sharp criticism from Democratic lawmaker Adam Schiff. He calls ZTE's tech a major cybersecurity threat. The FBI director, Poppy, told the Senate in February there is risk in letting companies like ZTE access U.S. telecom networks.
It provides the capacity to maliciously modify or steal information, and it provides the capacity to conduct undetected espionage.
Now, timing here is everything. Trump's policy reversal comes as the U.S. and China gear up for round 2 of trade talks. A Chinese delegation heads to Washington this week. Trump said China and the U.S. are now working well together after past trade talks were one-sided. And this is my favorite part. Be cool. It will all work out.
Okay, let's hope it all works out. But you've got to think either this is the president way off message, or, Christine, this is brilliant negotiating by the president ahead of this Chinese delegation. As you said, they come on Tuesday. They're going to be here for almost a week, trying to make some progress to end a trade war.
And the U.S. has a very big bill that it is asking for the Chinese to settle. It wants to cut the deficit with China, the trade deficit, by $200 billion by the year 2020, and end Chinese subsidies for advanced technology industries. So the U.S. is asking for a lot. Is this a negotiating tool in all of that? We just don't know yet.
Christine Romans, thank you very much. We're going to debate this more ahead. Meantime, 2 more giant fissures open up, spewing lava bombs and toxic fumes near the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. What's the latest there? We'll take you there. And we are moments away from the president's son-in-law and his senior advisor, Jared Kushner, speaking live in front of this gathering at the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem. You'll hear that as well. Stay with us.
If you've been turned...
All right, welcome back. We're continuing to follow the breaking news of the violence that has erupted in Gaza. The death toll now, according to Palestinian authorities, is 41 people have been killed in clashes in Gaza today. This, of course, at the same time that the U.S. Embassy is opening right now, the ceremony underway in Jerusalem. We're going to keep following this breaking news. There's a lot to get to. Our Ron Brownstein is here, our CNN senior political analyst and senior editor for The Atlantic. Also, Caitlin Huey-Burns, national political reporter at Real Clear Politics. Ron Brownstein, to you. Look, there are the leaders of the PLO say, look, this takes the U.S. off the table as an even hand in the negotiating process. But the Trump administration says not so. This makes the chances of a two-state solution, of a peace deal, more plausible. How do you see it?
It's really hard to see how it makes the chances of a two-state deal more plausible when you're in effect, putting your thumb on the scale of one of the most contested issues, which is the final status of Jerusalem. Look, there is a reason why other presidents did not take this step, and there is a reason why the only other country in the world, I believe, that has moved its embassy is Guatemala, with the prospect of Honduras and Paraguay to follow. This is, I think, indicative, Poppy, of kind of the broader tilt in the axis of American foreign policy. I mean, we are seeing a Trump administration that is closely aligning with the views of Likud in Israel, the conservative Sunni monarchies in the Mideast, and pulling away from kind of common cause with our traditional allies, particularly in Europe, as we see on both this and Iran. And this is kind of, you can almost see the wrenching shift of the movement here. And this is an historic kind of reorientation of the axis of American foreign policy.
Caitlin, as we wait to hear from the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner, let me get you on another big headline, and that is this huge Chinese tech company, ZTE, which has been punished severely, so much so by the U.S. Commerce Department that it is going out of business because it lied about a deal it made to not do business with Iran and North Korea. Now the president wants to save this company? What gives?
Yeah, it was a very fascinating tweet, and one in which the White House actually had to do the rare thing of sending out a kind of a clarification or an expansion of what the president did. And remember, this is a White House who often says the tweets speak for themselves.
Sure.
This is the kind of announcement that would run completely counter, of course, to the president's whole campaign message, which was, American jobs versus China's jobs in China. And you also have not only Democrats weighing in, but also people like Marco Rubio saying this is a national security issue. So the criticism here is bipartisan. I mean, of course, it raises questions about what the president has in terms of leverage.
Let me just jump in here, Caitlin. Let's listen to the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner.
I am so proud to be here today in Jerusalem, the eternal heart of the Jewish people. And I am especially honored to be here today as a representative of the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu and Sarah for being with us here today to celebrate this historic occasion. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask all of the members of Congress who are here on their delegations to rise and be recognized. Today would not be possible without your advocacy throughout the years. Thank you, Deputy Secretary Sullivan, for leading our delegation, Secretary Mnuchin for your leadership and for your friendship, and of course, Ivanka, thank you for all of the great work you do to help so many people in our country and throughout the world, including me. So I love you. I also want to acknowledge Vice President Mike Pence for his tireless efforts to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. In December of last year, President Trump announced to the world that the United States would finally recognize the truth, that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. He also declared that we would soon move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and just 5 months later, we are standing on these grounds. While presidents before him have backed down from their pledge to move the American embassy once in office, this president delivered. Because when President Trump makes a promise, he keeps it. But today also demonstrates American leadership. By moving our embassy to Jerusalem, we have shown the world once again that the United States can be trusted. We stand with our friends and our allies, and above all else, we've shown that the United States of America will do what's right, and so we have. Israel's a sovereign nation with the right to determine its own capital, the same right that is enjoyed by every other country in the world. In taking this action, the United States has also chosen to strengthen the bond between our two countries. Our special bond is the envy of nations throughout the world. This bond is forged through shared history, sustained through shared interests, and immortalized through shared principles. The United States stands with Israel because we both believe in freedom. We stand together because we both believe in human rights. We stand together because we believe democracy is worth defending. And the United States stands with Israel because we know that it is the right thing to do. When we stand together for the principles and the values we share, we shine a light of justice unto the world. Israel proves every day the boundless power of freedom. This land is the only land in the Middle East in which Jews, Muslims, and Christians, and people of all faiths participate and worship freely according to their beliefs. Israel protects women's rights, freedom of speech, and the right of every individual to reach their God-given potential. These are the same values that the United States cherishes. These are the values that bind us together. These are also the values that have made Israel one of the most vibrant nations in the world. This tiny population has spurred advancements in technology, medicine, and agriculture, making the world a healthier, safer, and more prosperous place. These are the blessings we hope Israel can one day share with its neighbors. Last week, President Trump acknowledged another truth and kept another promise. He announced his intention to exit the dangerous, flawed, and one-sided Iran deal. Iran's aggression threatens the many peace-loving citizens throughout the region and the entire world. From Israel to Jordan to Egypt to Saudi Arabia and beyond, many leaders are fighting to modernize their countries and create better lives for their people. In confronting common threats and in pursuit of common interests, previously unimaginable opportunities and alliances are emerging. I am also proud to be here today as a member of the team that President Trump has entrusted to lead the efforts to bring peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It has been an honor to work with our new Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, National Security Advisor John Bolton, our Ambassador, David Friedman, and our Special Representative, Jason Greenblatt, who really does so much great work. I also want to acknowledge Ambassador Nikki Haley, who really has created a new day for Israel at the UN. On December 6th, President Trump was very clear that his decision and today's celebration do not reflect a departure from our strong commitment to lasting peace, a peace that overcomes the conflicts of the past in order to give our children a brighter and more boundless future. As we have seen from the protests of the last month and even today, those provoking violence are part of the problem and not part of the solution. The United States is prepared to support a peace agreement in every way that we can. We believe that it is possible for both sides to gain more than they give, so that all people can live in peace, safe from danger, free from fear, and able to pursue their dreams. The United States recognizes the sensitivity surrounding Jerusalem, a city that means so much to so many. Jerusalem is a city unique in the history of civilization. No other place on earth can claim significance to three major religions. Each day, Jews pray at the Western Wall, Muslims bow in prayer at Al-Aqsa Mosque, and Christians worship at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That is why President Trump has called many times, including right now, on all parties to maintain the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif. While the challenges to peace are numerous, I have personally seen that the determination of the leaders in the region and throughout the world remains steadfast. They have seen too much pain, sorrow, and wasted opportunity, and they think it's time to try something better. Throughout history, Jerusalem has been the victim of war and conquest. It has been used to divide people and all. In fact, immediately after the 1967 war, one of the first acts of the Knesset was to adopt the Protection of Holy Places law, ensuring access to places of worship to members of all religions. Funds were immediately allocated to repair any damage to the churches, mosques, and synagogues that suffered through war, conflict, and neglect. As Israel turns 70, the search for a lasting peace turns over a new leaf, one of realism and of not being afraid to stand strongly with our allies for what is good, for what is right, and for what is true. Thank you. When there is peace in this region, we will look back upon this day and remember that the journey to peace started with a strong America recognizing the truth. The pursuit of peace is the noblest pursuit of humankind. I believe peace is within reach if we dare to believe that the future can be different from the past, that we are not condemned to relive history, and that the way things were is not how they must forever be. It will not be an easy road, and it will be filled with difficult moments and tough decisions, but if we dream big, if we lead with courage, we can change the trajectory for millions from hopeless to boundless. Tip the scales in favor of the righteous. Today, we take another historic step in that direction. I am confident that as a result, our nations will be stronger, our peoples more prosperous, and our futures filled with even greater promise for peace. May God bless you. May God bless Israel. May God bless the United States of America.
A standing ovation there for the president's son-in-law, his senior advisor, Jared Kushner, hearkening today as a new day for Israel. This as he makes these remarks at the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, a highly controversial move by President Trump. Obviously, those in the audience, they're all incredibly supportive of it, but it's important to juxtapose this as well with the violence that has broken out in nearby Gaza. Our reports now show 41 people have died in that violence, according to Palestinian authorities. Some of the highlights of what Jared Kushner said: he said, "We, the United States, stand with Israel because we know it is the right thing to do." He talked about a journey to peace, starting with a strong America, continuing the administration's line that it believes that taking Jerusalem off the table will help facilitate the peace process. It is not seen that way at all by Palestinian authorities, who have said that They will not come to the table now for continued peace talks. Again, we're going to analyze all of this, break down what Jared Kushner said, as well as talking about standing with our allies in this move opposed by major U.S. allies like the UK, reiterating that this morning. We'll get analysis of all of it straight ahead. Stay with us.